Hi everyone, and welcome back to the WPQuickies series, bite-sized WordPress tips and tricks in 20 minutes or less. So thanks for taking your time to join me this Sydney afternoon. It's a bit of a glum afternoon, unfortunately, from here. And welcome to those overseas and for those who are watching on replay. Today, I'm going to be looking at how to track plugin vulnerabilities. If you are online, drop a note in the comments, just let me know where you guys are from and who we've got online today. So we've got Jean. Hey, Jean from Lisero in New South Wales. We've got David from Wollongong and Kingsley from the Northern Beaches. Yep. Thank you so much, guys, for joining me. Tipper. Hi, Tipper. Good to have you back. If you are watching on YouTube, can you please click the subscribe button and click that bell? That'd be great. That'll just let you know when my videos are released again. And if you're on Facebook, you can give a big thumbs up for me as well. That'd be super. Let's see, who else have we got online today? It's Morris in Sydney. Hey, guy, how you doing? So Slayer in South America. Great to have you on board. Thanks for, I really do appreciate all those international viewers that subscribe in. Joey J from Singapore, as always, thanks for joining me. Joey, as well as Paul. Paul's in the Northern Beaches as well. And Helen, Morio in New South Wales. Oh, thank you very much, guys, for joining. I really do appreciate the support. Who else have we got online? The Maze. Thanks for the series. No problem, John. Thank you so much. Okay, shall we get into it, guys? I think so. Let's just put this a little bit bigger. So today, I thought I'd take a little bit step back and think more along the lines of security again. More specifically, how can you be up to date? How can you keep in touch with all those issues that that come up with WordPress? You know, every so often you'll have like a big issue. There'll be a plugin that's maybe taken over by a bad actor, or there'll be like a vulnerability found in like a common plugin that can affect millions of users. You know, we've had some real big vulnerabilities in the last 6 months as well, and really popular plugins as well. Hi, Paul, and hi, Feature Shock as well. Thanks for joining in. So I really wanted to do a little bit of a roundup, just to let you know where you can go to find out these vulnerabilities and try and patch your stuff in advance before it kind of gets out to the bigger, wider world. So what are vulnerabilities anyway? Well, I mean, there's a heap of ways a plugin or theme or WordPress core can become vulnerable to an attack. So things like MySQL injection, and that's where the bad actors, and we call them bad actors, that's the hackers and stuff. So when the bad actor tries to enter some SQL statements into a form and fields, so fields on a form, or even using the URL parameter as well. So it mostly happens because the plugin author isn't sanitizing, isn't checking the input fields when it comes back from the user. So these people, they try and add SQL statements to maybe add a user or to drop a table or something like that, and just to try and see if they can affect the database that way. So that's what SQL injection is, and it's very common. It's a very popular method of attack for that. And you know, there's a whole heap of plugins, a whole heap of developers that really don't check their the stuff that's coming back from user input, which they always should do anyway. Another attack, another vulnerability is something called cross-site scripting. It's similar to SQL injection. So the bad actors, they try to save code into the database, mostly using comments or other input fields as well on forms. And cross-site scripting, it's more targeted at trying to steal your cookie and your session information so that they can then log in as you as an admin and then take over the website. Malware is another type of vulnerability. So malware is generally already infected plugins from untrustworthy sites. So for example, torrents, if you're trying to download stuff for free, then you know most of the time, if you're downloading a theme or a plugin from a torrent site, it's going to be infected with malware. And the malware is simply a little bit of code that sits in the plugin, sits in the theme, and it just executes, and it can create a backdoor for bad actors to log in, or it can simply connect to another site and then reinfect your site with a virus. So malware, very popular method of hacking, of getting access into WordPress systems. Now, along the line, similar to malware, and it is part of malware, it's like a subgroup, is something called nulled plugins. Now, nulled plugins and sometimes nulled themes as well. What they are is, sometimes you can come across plugins and themes that cost quite a lot of money. So think about things like easy digital downloads, WooCommerce with all those add-ons. If you've got a store and you've bought 4 or 5 add-ons, that can get up towards $500, $600, $1,000. And sometimes people just can't afford that cost, so they go searching around for that plugin, but for free. So a nulled plugin is a licensed plugin, so a plugin you normally buy a license key for, but somebody has taken that license check out. So essentially, it's the premium plugin, but a free version of it. Now, most nulled plugins are going to come along with malware installed. They're not giving it away for free. There's usually a dark motive for that. So if you are looking to purchase a plugin, please just buy it, buy it from the original source, include that cost into your client costs so you can reimburse that. But yeah, generally we don't want to be downloading nulled plugins or null themes. It's a fast route for bad actors to get into your WordPress website. Okay, moving on, old libraries. So plugins and themes, they can be very complex nowadays, and some of them rely on external libraries, JavaScript libraries, for example, or even PHP libraries. And sometimes these libraries get out of date and somebody finds a vulnerability in it. And even although the WordPress developer knows that their plugin code is secure, then perhaps one of the plugins, one of the libraries that they've used can become insecure. And if that's not updated, then that could lead to a vulnerability as well. Compromised uploads, that's another one as well. So always be wary of plugins that allow users to upload files into your website. That is a huge opportunity for bad actors to upload code in the files and then trying to run that code on the web server. So if you do have a plugin or a theme that allows users to upload, make sure that you can drill down and be very, very specific as to what types of files they can upload. You definitely don't want to be uploading things like batch files or .php, and also get yourself a firewall scanner in there so it scans all the files and makes sure there's nothing dodgy in there. Now, the last vulnerability I want to cover today is privilege escalation. So that's when a bad actor tries to use a low-level user login, so something like a subscriber or contributor, and then they know there's a vulnerability in a particular plugin round about the user roles. So user roles and capabilities, that's your admin, your editor, your author, your subscriber, your contributor, all those types of levels. They come with capabilities, things that they can do with WordPress, like install plugin, delete users, add users. So a privilege escalation is when the user finds a vulnerability in a particular plugin, that plugin uses roles and capabilities to add extra stuff to WordPress, for example, WooCommerce as the shop manager role. So if they find a vulnerability in that, then they can go in as a low user and then use that vulnerability to exploit and escalate their privilege and be able to access functions and features that actual user shouldn't be able to run. So that's a kind of quick summary of the different types of vulnerabilities that you can get on a WordPress system. There are probably heaps more, but those are kind of the main ones I wanted to cover today. Okay, so what can you do to prevent this? Well, of course, we're talking about updates. So we want to update our WordPress website frequently. So update your WordPress core, update your plugins, update your themes frequently. But I always get asked, what is frequently? Because frequently is a very relative term. For me, frequently means at least weekly, if not daily. I'm usually in Manage WP daily, just doing some updates. But definitely it means immediately if you are aware of a vulnerability. So always test your updates on a staging site first and see if there's any issues before then applying the same sequence of updates to your live production website. So I want to take the rest of the talk today and just like talking about where you can go to find these vulnerabilities and to stay informed ahead of the curve for these issues. So the first one is WPScan. So I'm going to drop some links down in the comments below, and I'll drop all these links in the comments underneath YouTube and Facebook afterwards, just so people who are watching on playback can get access to those comments. So first one here is WPScan. Now, WPScan, it's probably the best source overall for all WordPress vulnerabilities. It's used a lot by other WordPress-related SaaS services, so software as a service services. So things like you're thinking about if you're using services like Manage WP or WP Site Care stuff, they probably probe the WPScan API just to find out what plugins and themes have vulnerabilities attached to that. So you can view vulnerabilities by core, by plugin, by theme from the WPScan website. There's also an API, as I mentioned before. Now, it's free and paid. So if you are a developer and you want to write your own code to check your own website plugins and themes, or your client's website plugin and themes for vulnerabilities using the WPScan API, you can definitely do that. So you can have a look on the website there. They've got a link to the API. If you join up to WPScan, just leave them your email. They will email you with weekly or daily issues with issues round about WordPress plugins and theme vulnerabilities. So it is the best database out there. It's got thousands and thousands of issues. And when people come across issues, they usually it will tell WPScan first, and then they'll have a look into it. And then once it's fixed, then they'll publish the issue there. So it's a bit of a responsibility reporting method as well. But WPScan, definitely the best place to go to find out if your plugins are affected, have some issues. The next one is Wordfence. So Wordfence has a blog category dedicated to WordPress vulnerabilities. I'll just paste that down below in comments. There we go. So a dedicated category just to cover all the issues around about WordPress. But it has a great security plugin as well. So it's the one that I use on my client websites, Wordfence. I mostly use the free. I've got a few clients that use the premium. But together with being informed with their blog, like subscribing to the blog and getting those latest updates, and having your Wordfence plugin there, that you can stay ahead of all the issues as they come out, and just know that your website is secure, at least for those known vulnerabilities. The next one is Securi. Now, Securi is not WordPress specific. They basically secure all websites. So they've got this front-facing scanner on their website, so you can scan the front-end version of your website to see if it's got any malware detected from there. But they also have a fantastic blog. Now, the blog covers WordPress security. So not just vulnerabilities, but just general WordPress security as well. So things like passwords, user management, things of that sort of nature. But it's well worth subscribing to that particular category on the blog. And you get all those WordPress issues that are coming across. So again, you can stay ahead of the curve. And they do also have a plugin, which is another WordPress web firewall application. So it scans for malware, it scans files, and just makes sure that your WordPress settings are up to speed. So yep, so the blog you can subscribe to get some information, and they've got the plugin as well. The last one I want to cover today is Manage WP. Now, Manage WP, it's a SaaS application, so it's a software as a service application. It's the one that I use most of the time. I'll drop a link down here. So manage WP, I use it for my client websites. I use it the free version. I've got a couple of paid plugins, mostly for add-ons, mostly for reporting. But the great thing about Manage WP is, I'll just make this a little bit bigger again. So the little graphic down at the very bottom, the square graphic, that's kind of on the dashboard. So when you see the dashboard of all your client websites, it's little thumbnails. And if there's any vulnerabilities that's detected, it has this little triangle with an exclamation mark as a warning. And when you click on the website and you actually get to the dashboard, again, I've created another graphic there. You can see it's got exclamation mark over the actual particular plugin there. And it tells you there's a vulnerability and which version it is in there. So that's quite good. I think it's great. It allows me to easily scan through all my client sites and see which ones, like, oh no, there's a warning there, and there's obviously something that needs to be patched really, really quickly for that. So I can then go quickly in and just patch that if needed. Now, sometimes if you manage a client website, support and maintenance, sometimes the client themselves will let the license key for premium plugins or themes expire for whatever reason. It might be the card's expired, or they just don't want to pay the cost, or they'll just simply ignore the email reminders. So if this happens, you're going to need to get some sort of written consent. This is if you're managing their client website. Make sure you get some sort of written consent from them that if their site is hacked due to vulnerabilities in a license expired plugin or theme, that you're not held responsible for that. So that's quite key. So if you're looking after any client websites, if you've got some sort of contract, that states you're going to update their plugins, update WordPress, you definitely need to either include in your terms and conditions, and I'm going to paste, there's my terms and conditions for my WP Wingman. So I've got a clause in there that specifically says if the client doesn't provide the license key, if they don't pay for the license key, then I'm not responsible if their website gets hacked, or if they lose business, or if they lose money, because I couldn't update that plugin because the client themselves let that license key expire. So again, something just to think about when you're dealing with maintenance. You've always got to cover your losses and your bases. So quite an important little step there, I think. So for vulnerabilities, because it happens all the time. I've got several clients that don't want to pay for licenses, but they still want to use the plugin. And if it expires and there's a vulnerability, then yep, that's a vector that bad actors can get into and take over your WordPress website. So a nice short, quick WP quickie today, just talking about WordPress vulnerabilities. And that's my roundup of where to go to track those vulnerabilities for core plugins and themes. There's several places you can go. So security, Wordfence, and WPScan, and subscribe to their blogs, get their emails, so keep up to date with security news, basically, so you can be ahead of the curve. And also for that managed WP service as well. I love that. It's just a really quick visual way that I can identify if there's a problem with a WordPress website. So guys, if you do have any comments, throw them in the comments below, but hopefully that should be fairly self-explanatory. It's not a huge technical topic today. If there's no questions, then next week, please join me for the wonderful world of WebP. So if you don't know what WebP is, it's not a new graphic format. It's been around for a few years, but WebP are graphics, and the file size is significantly smaller than PNG or JPGs. So we're going to have a look into that next week. There's a couple of questions here. I'll try and answer them, try my best. How do you avoid the injection vulnerability on forms, etc.? Okay, well, this really goes down to the plugin author. So it's a great question. As a developer, I can always go into the plugin code and make sure that it's been sanitized. But essentially, what should happen, what plugin author should do, is whenever they're getting something from the user, and so that could be a form, or whenever they're receiving URL parameters at the top of your URL, you've always got to check them and sanitize them. And WordPress gets it gives you some sanitization functions, some PHP functions. So things like sanitize text field, sanitize URL, sanitize email. And what it'll do is it'll strip out all the characters that aren't expected or to be like in there. So for example, if there was SQL stuff in there, it would strip all that out. So again, it's not so much of how can you avoid, it's more for you as a plugin author, if you are one, to make sure that everything that a user fills out in a form could potentially be an attack vector from a bad actor. So you've got to bring it that text, check it to make sure it's in that proper format. If it's a text field, you expect text. If it's a number, you expect number. If it's a URL, you expect a URL, that sort of stuff. Yeah, to check on that. So there's not so much you can do yourself to avoid injection vulnerability on forms, but just please, stay ahead of those. You can check your plugin with WPScan just to make sure that it's there's no issues with that, and make sure you're up to date with the current version. The May says, can you spend a few minutes about your approach to testing on a shadow site before pushing it to production? Yeah, sure. I can certainly do that. It's a great question. Okay, so I did mention before, when you're updating your plugins, you should always do it on a staging site. Most reputable website hosts will have a staging version where you just press a button and it copies your entire live site over to staging. So when you're doing updates, always apply it to a staging or a copy. And what you do is, or what I do is, I basically do plugin by plugin. So I'll update a plugin, refresh the site, make sure it's okay, have a look in the debug log. Is there any issues coming out from that? Nope. Okay, that one's safe. I'll update another plugin. So if it's a more complex plugin like WooCommerce, I'll update that plugin on the development site, on the staging site. I'll then refresh the screen, make sure there's no errors. I'll have a look in the debug log, make sure there's no errors in there. But then I'll go into the actual admin interface, and I'll look around, make sure there's no update notifications that are coming up. And then I'll do things like I'll go into the checkout page, I'll go into the single product page, I'll add a product into the cart, I'll go into the cart, I'll check out, I'll get all the way through until the payment process, because I don't want to be buying everything all the time. But as long as most of the user functions that I would expect to happen for that plugin is working, I would give that a check mark. And that's essentially my process as I go down each of these. Like small plugins that I know only do like really, really tiny minor thing or admin stuff, I'd probably just update them and then just do a quick check on the front end and back end to make sure nothing looks bizarre, and then that's a pass for them. But I keep them in order, and I have a spreadsheet. I just do a checklist, check. If there's any issues, then I'll note the issue as a note on the spreadsheet. And if there's something to fix, then I will then find a fix, and that might be going to the plugin author, and ask them to fix, wait for an update, and then applying that and do the same test. But I've basically got a script of what I've done, plugin by plugin, issue by issue, pass, fail. And then once that's updated and it's working fine on the staging site, then I've got two options. If it's not an e-commerce store, so if there's no heavy usage, if there's nothing being updated on like a daily, hourly, minute basis, and I've got permission from the client, then I can then just copy that staging site right over to production again and overwrite that stuff. Or most commonly is I would then take the script that I've used on the staging site, and then I just play that on the production site. So go into production site, update that plugin, check, update that plugin, check, update that plugin, check. And if the two sites are the same, live and staging, and you've went through all the processes of updating your staging site, making your notes, making sure there's no issues, then when you play that back on this production site, then 9 out of 10 times, then that should just work as it worked with the staging site. So that's my basic play-by-play of how I update stuff on staging site and then update it on production. So I never update production live. It's always staging first, and then production, like a play script for that. So that's a great question. Thanks, Mace. Oh yeah, no problem, Alan. Slayer, have you got a question? Do you have any interesting experience to share with us using any of these WordPress defenders? Do you mean the security ones? I don't really have any interesting experiences. Just that I have used them all. I've used all-in-one, is it all-in-one security or all-in-one firewall, something like that, or iTheme security. I've used them all. I think Wordfence is probably the best one for me anyway. I know it's code, I know the authors, I know there's nothing dodgy in there, and I know it works well at what it does. So not really any stories, just some good experience. So thanks for that question, Solaire. Okay, how do you get rid of old libraries? Again, this is more from a plugin author point of view, Shane. So you as an end user are not going to be able to do anything about an old library from there. But if you are looking at these blogs and the WPScan and you find something that comes through, and you recognize that that's a plugin that's on your website, and you read down and you say, oh, well, a library that's used within that plugin has and you're like, I have no idea what that means. The best thing you can do is actually reach out to a plugin author and just confirm it with them. So you can get in touch with the plugin author on the WordPress.org website or from the website that you purchased the plugin to, and just ask them. Just say, like, this thing's come through from WPScan, or it's come through from the security blog, and it says that this library is a bit outdated. Can you, let me know, has that been updated, and is it included in the next version of the plugin? So you as a website owner, and you can be proactive, and just ask the plugin author to say, just tell me the version where that's updated, or go and update it right now, rather than having to wait for that. Sometimes you might be in a situation where there's a vulnerability in the plugin, and the plugin author just doesn't respond, or it's not been updated in weeks, months, years. That's probably the time to ditch that plugin and find something that's that does the same thing or something similar, and that's actively maintained by a plugin. And you can see if it's been actively maintained. Just go into the support on WordPress.org, and you can see if a plugin's author is responding to the issues, and you can also see how when it was last updated as well. Great question. Thank you very much. Kinsley says, have you used a different host for staging, for example, local? I tend not to do updates on local. Local machines, when you've got a website running there's lots of different things that might not carry across to like a live environment. So things like emails, your email might be sandboxed because you're on a local machine. You might be running on a different port because you've got other things conflicting in your local machine. So I tend not to use local for updating, but certainly different hosts would work. So I am a big fan of Wordify.com just now. I'll drop that in the comments. Wordify.com. No affiliate links, so you don't have to worry about that. These guys, they're mostly for developers, but what they do is they offer free websites. They can host free websites. And now there are obviously limitations. I think there's about 10 gigabytes of space, but essentially you can create your own website. Just give it a name, .wordify.com, and they'll host it for free in Australia here. So you can have your own free website, your own free copy of your client website. You can then just practice your updating and then take that over to the production. So I've used that on a couple of client websites whose hosting plan don't have like a staging button. I just then, migrate their website from live over to Wordify. And it is a domain, and it's all password protected. So it uses a directory password, so no one can get into it. Google can't index or anything, so it's all nice and secure. And copy the client website over there, and then do the update script and make sure everything's fine, and then apply those updates to production. So yeah, so I get a big +1, big hands up for Wordify.com. But certainly you can use a different host for staging rather than the same one. But definitely, I would avoid using your local PC. Okay, guys, thank you so much. That was some great questions there. Great to have some feedback and engagement. Again, just looking for topics as well for more lunchtime quickies. Fill out the form. So the form link is down below. There's a QR code as well, right below the video on YouTube or Facebook. So yeah, drop me some ideas, some fresh ideas, so I can do some more topics throughout the year. And join me on WP Australia. .org, WPAustralia.org. So it's like the central place that tells you all the WordPress things that are happening in Australia. So all the meetup groups and a link to Slack as well, which is the chat application that all of us developers, designers, and WordPress experts kind of hang out on a daily basis. So if you haven't joined Slack, please do that today. That'd be fantastic. It'll be good to have you on there, just chatting away. Yeah, and please connect with me as well. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram and Twitter as well. Happy to connect with you guys if you want to ask me some extra stuff or just have me in your network. That'd be fantastic. So thank you so much. Thank you for your questions, for your attention as well, and just for joining me on this Thursday. No, I was going to say sunny. This non-sunny Thursday Sydney afternoon. And I will see you guys next week. What are we talking about? On WebP. Excellent, WebP. So thanks for watching and see you guys next week. Cheerio.